let's wind back
Hmm.
to the beginning, Jen.
Yeah.
How did you get into like doing the music stuff?
I used to just play randomly around London. I did like a few gigs singing and playing
Right.
just for fun, for hobby.
Yeah.
And a kind of tenuous link connection got in touch with me, said, "Oh, my mate's in the band and they're looking for like a backing singer. Do you like be interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, okay, whatever."
Mm.
Thinking it wasn't really a big deal. And they hooked me up and I went down to studio. Oh, they're like really famous studios in London. I can't remember now where they are. It'll come to me in the middle of the podcast.
Just shout it out randomly.
Yeah, it's there because everyone has like rehearsed or recorded there at some point. And went for what I thought was a jam, and it was an audition fundamentally.
Okay.
And they weren't really looking for a backing singer; they were looking for a keyboard player. Anyway, because I was kind of quite cash about it, they took to me and they it turned out they were signed to Sony BMG,
Right.
which even then I didn't really get what a big deal that was. And yeah, their manager gave me a call and said, we want you to sign a retainer for the band and commit to working and touring with them live for the next 6 months.
Right.
The band were called the Hoosiers. I can see you've written it down. And you'll see it on my website as well.
I'll just tick that one off.
That one off now.
Done.
Which actually, like, there was a point kind of in my adult life and in teaching where if I said that word and all I say the kids, but all the students would go, oh, like, no way.
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
it's like, sorry, who? Sorry, fellas, if you listen to this at any point. And it was like my kind of like calling call. Anyway, so yeah, it was complete. So I was very, very fortunate. I basically fell into being a session musician for them.
That's cool.
And into working for a major record label. And yeah, it was the 3 guys and just me playing keyboards and doing backing singing and learned everything from ear.
Right.
No dots, no chords, no sheets.
Good.
And then I did it for a year with them. Yeah.
Right. That must have been an amazing experience.
Yeah, it really was, and completely unexpected.
Was it quite a sort of departure from, I guess, obviously you were just doing like bargain stuff.
Yeah.
Did you feel comfortable in doing that, or was it sort of like you just jumped in and just got on with it?
Surprisingly, I did. I think so. Music has been the underlying theme and the thing I can't escape from, and I've kept coming back to my whole life. And I guess in one way, shape, or form is the one thing I'm good at. And so it felt really natural just to be playing.
Yeah,
it felt natural to be performing as well. And I guess from a musical perspective as well, I didn't, because I had no formal training. I had no judgment or pretension about whether it was difficult or whatever. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed fundamentally being with them and hanging out with them. They were a good bunch of lads, and also I was just really green about the industry. So I generally have the character that you just treat everyone the same, same kind of like warmness and respect. So it was easy for me in that respect. I guess the shock came in terms of learning the realities of the music industry, learning what it meant to actually be a session musician, which you guys will know about, and is incredibly hard work, or can be incredibly hard work, and there's a lot of pressure. I learned about the realities of being a minority, so I was generally always the only girl in the room.
Right.
The only female session musician I came across ever. And then the realities of being on tour just from a physical and mental point of view. Wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
And then I think I did have some amazing experiences. So when you reel them off as kind of like in a CV type of way, or you tell the story. And I remember my friends at the time actually were like, my friend Jenn, and she's a rock star and it's really glamorous, and they were really proud and excited by what I was doing and got to be on TV and stuff. And I was quite nonchalant about that, I think, because I think maybe my instinct was like, if I get phased about this, then it maybe becomes so much more of a big deal that I can't handle it. And
right,
and
yeah.
also I was just playing their stuff and I don't know, just the realities of it is it's way less glamorous than it appears, which I could go into way more detail, and I guess is relevant to
obviously, like I know sort of what you're talking about, but I guess
Yeah.
Joe Blogs
Yeah.
on the street doesn't really.
Yeah.
They just see the other side of it, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
See
totally.
so like, what sort of things?
So the realities are, it's I guess being in the spotlight, that is very kind of visual, aesthetic world. So I struggled with like being seen and like being observed like all the time. So and then yeah, there's an adrenaline that goes with like playing in front of people.
Yeah.
Every night. So I'd experienced massive highs and massive lows. So just say, for example, we go on stage, we do a cracking show. The Hoosiers were a band. They had tracks. They played to track.
Right.
And their first album is fantastic. Actually, I'm not just saying that, but it was like everything was just like really really tight. And I remember we did live at Maida Vale. Obviously, big deal. And a really big deal to the guys, and it's their band, it was their baby, and it was their record. So I was working for them, and there was a point where actually that realization hit that I wasn't their mate, and I was their employee, I guess, effectively, and my job was to make them look good. It wasn't, I wasn't the artist. I'm not the pivotal figure. And when it came to Maida Vale, I think nerves got the better of me with that realization, and it was live on camera, but there wasn't any room for error, especially in terms of like their music. And I remember playing it, and I remember like noticing like all the fuck ups that I made and stuff. And their producer, who was Toby Rafferty, I think that was his surname. He was a former keyboard player for Jamiroquai.
Okay.
Actually passed away a couple of years ago, really sadly. And had a reputation for being quite hard nosed, and he produced their whole album, pulled me to one side and basically said, not acceptable. Like that's not what we've brought you on board to do, and said you need to put way more hours in practicing and working to click. And I was like, yes, Toby, no Toby, 3 bags, all Toby. And it was really scary. Basically, it was an ultimatum. It was like, you can't afford to fuck up again, and you'll lose your job. And it was my job. It was my full-time job. It was paying the rent and everything else. And but then he suggested that I played to click without the keyboard. So we had a BPM, and I got a little like electronic battery operated metronome, and I would basically just mark out the key, the chord sequences with my hands.
Right.
So something like "Worried About Ray." I remember the intro. Oh my gosh, it like flashes over me. It was a do 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 do. Truth be told. Truth be told, and it's keyboard led, and so I basically do that, like listen to the click in my headphones backstage every night, and just map out the chord sequences to each tune, just to metronome. So it wasn't actually with a keyboard or music. It's kind of fairly kind of brutal, and the upside is I'm like a human metronome. So I'm very sensitive to So I did in later years as a like choir director. I'd be like, no, you're off beat. I'm like, oh, we definitely were. You were. Because, I've just got that ingrained, like, sense of pulse.
Yeah.
So that was hard. It was really lonely for me because I was the only girl. Not that should make any difference, but I guess just I didn't have any, like, companions on tour with me. I was far away from family. I guess there was an element of people were so proud of me and thought it was really glamorous, and I was really fortunate. Jen's so lucky to have this opportunity, and I know now especially people would give their right leg to have that opportunity, and so I didn't feel like I deserved to have anything to complain about, but and so I never actually would say like I'm bored or I'm lonely or I'm frustrated, or wish the guys were nicer to me, or wish I had this. I didn't want to kind of complain, so I just generally stayed quiet. And we had a strict no drinking before show policy, so it's not very rock and roll. And then generally like no after show. I mean, occasionally we kind of let our hair down, but because it was like back-to-back nights, you couldn't really afford to be hanging the next day. And then it was just generally rough getting on a tour bus and then setting off for the next city if you're like blazing drunk or if you've got a hangover or stuff. So not saying that, alcohol's what makes the kind of rock and roll bus go round, but
You got to blow off some steam,
Yeah,
surely,
there wasn't a So especially on tour, my days would generally consist of like waking up in a strange city, and I'd go and explore and take pictures and do some shopping, and they'd have like they'd have like maybe a press interview, or
Yeah.
like they'd have album band stuff to do, and then being completely honest, which I always am, the more they kind of catapulted in terms of their success and fame, the more isolated I became, because we had to have that separation. There was a lot of questions in the press of like, who is the girl in the background, and I actually made a really fatal error once of texting into Capital Radio. It was when their single release was coming up, and I thought, I'll do the guys a favor, I'll text in and say like, you need to play their tune. And I said, like, I thought, they'd be more likely to do it if I say like, it's Jenn there. And the next thing, my phone rings and it was Capital Radio, and they basically interviewed me live on air. Well, their band manager went ape shit. And you can feel that as like musicians, can't you? But me, green 22, 23, was like, I just didn't think anything of it. And then also when the phone rang and I answered it, and I was actually in a cab on the way to the ICA to do iTunes gig, and anyway, they were fuming. And I get it now, but I didn't at the time, and there were loads of like errors that I made like that, and I was young and didn't really know if it was what I wanted to do. It was just like, people must be listening to me going like, this chick, is she for real? Come on, be grateful. But those were the realities in terms of my experience.
And I guess, well, what did you learn from that experience?
I learned a lot about what you need to be a touring musician on a personal level. So I learned that actually that support unit sounds really cliched. In fact, I'll interject there, and I've repeated this to quite a few students along the way. My brother was a professional drummer as well. I remember speaking to him somewhere along the road on tour, and had some like quite dark moments, and dealt with it in not great ways on occasion as well. And I think it was possibly after like one of those, and I was just like, Dan, how do you? Sorry, I shouldn't say his name, but how do you? How did you deal with this? And he said, like, it's not human to have these like major highs and major lows. Like, so you're basically constantly being thrown up and down. It's no wonder that like you end up feeling mentally unstable and feeling like you've lost a grip of reality and all the rest of it. He said that basically when you have the really amazing shows and you're on a complete high and the euphorium gets to you, and even, your ego's inflated and you're thinking, yes, I feel amazing. And it's like, and it's so great that you did such a good job. You consciously level yourself, like you bring yourself down and go, it was my job. It's my job to play a good gig. It's my job to play the tunes. It's my job to kind of show up and give the audience what they want, and kind of bring yourself down a peg or two and level it out. But equally, when you have the major lows of like everything went wrong, the producer pulled me up, and I spoke to Capital Radio. I wasn't supposed to, and everyone's really cross with me. Is to bring yourself up again and go, okay, you're human, you make mistakes. This is like part of what being an artist makes. I'm sure he didn't use those words particularly if he ever listens to this and goes like, I don't remember saying that at all. That's the memory that I have of that conversation, and it was one of the most like helpful pieces of advice that I ever got, and I relate to students.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to catch up on new episodes every week. Also, check us out on our Facebook and Instagram at RecRooms, where you can find out about our other exciting music series. We also have this and all our other episodes of the podcast up on our RecRooms YouTube channel for your viewing pleasure. See you next time.